listening to How We Got Here. I'm Christopher McClellan, and I'm joined by my favorite, Christina Best.
Yay. I always find it strange that we have to introduce ourselves. Doesn't everybody know who we are?
Well, you would think so, but we do have new listeners every week, so it's...
Let's hope
and,
so.
You know, I spelled my name right on this episode.
This time. Yeah, unlike yesterday. That'll be an inside joke everyone will get if they listen to these episodes out of order.
But, the nuns at St. Mary Magdalene will be proud that I spelled my name right today. So, but, if you like today's conversation, and why wouldn't you, please consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing How We Got Here wherever you get your podcast. But, so, Christina, there seems to be a bunch of Buckeyes on this podcast today. Where do I fit in?
Well, you can become an honorary Buckeye.
Where's the application? Are you going to email that to me?
Yeah, I'll send it to you after the call. I don't know about our guest, but I'm pretty thrilled that fall is here. It is cold. It is overcast. It is rainy, and I'm ready for it. I've got my first sweater of the season on. Ohio wins for the win here.
Well, fall's come to Florida, too, with the humidity has gone down. So good.
Yay.
So would you like to do the honors of introducing your fellow Buckeye?
I would love to introduce our guest. Michael Allio is a 37-year-old business owner and entrepreneur from Akron, Ohio. While Michael plays many roles in his professional life, his favorite role is the one he plays as father to his 5-year-old son, James. In April 2017, Michael and his wife Laura received the dreaded call after Laura found a lump in her breast while breastfeeding. Laura was diagnosed with stage 2B triple-negative breast cancer in just 7 months after welcoming their first and only son to the world. Overnight, their lives were flipped upside down, and the family began frantically traveling the country searching for a cure. Sadly, in January of 2019, Laura transitioned into her new life while Michael was left with uncertainty, grief, and the weight of raising his son without her by his side. So we are so grateful to have Michael here with us to talk more about this experience. Welcome, Michael.
Thank you so much for having me on, Christopher and Christina. I've been looking forward to this for a while.
We have too.
Us too.
This is just awesome. But as we do with all of our guests, Michael, how did you get here?
Oh, geez. Well, I think you guys may not have reached out had I not been on ABC's The Bachelorette. I think that's really what has made my story with Laura and James and kind of the complications of just an individual trying to rebuild their life post losing a loved one. In Akron, our story was very public, but it's one of those things where it just follows me wherever I am. It's a part of who I am. And so, while it's not something that I don't always talk about 24/7, I'm always happy to share with the world and other people that are going through these hardships, that they're not alone, that other people have walked this journey. And, I'm constantly reminded of the strength that Laura actually exuberated during some of the most difficult times in her life. And I tap into that, during times like this, when we do have to touch on, very sensitive topics that, bring back, pain and memories. But I'm sure we can all agree, if we can discuss some of these things openly and honestly and kind of remove that veil of secrecy and privacy behind what makes us actually human, then I think other people can benefit from those and at least know that they're not alone.
Absolutely.
Knowing we're not alone is such a big part of the caregiving journey.
Yeah. I mean, I always look back and think about, even in the face of all of the tragedy and all of the hardship and everything, I can't help but put myself in other people's shoes. And there's one blessing that I don't know if I overlooked it before, or I was just too caught up in minutia. But when Laura got sick, we just had an outpouring of support in my community of Akron, Ohio, and actually in other places as well. One thing that Laura did, which I thought was just so remarkable, was the day we received the call, she actually took her message to Facebook Live. That's how she communicated. And I remember thinking, because actually, believe it or not, I'm more of a private person. I mean, clearly this show has changed that, but that's just me putting myself in awkward situations. But she did that because she wanted to assign purpose to it. She wanted to assign and create a dialogue that other people could actually engage in. And looking back on it now, I think it does come from that place of not wanting to do this alone. And because she did that, because she had the courage and vulnerability to, remove all of the things that keep us from real, conversations of substance, I think she was able to build that. And I think a lot of great things came from it.
Conversations of substance, not something that you hear often when we talk about social media. I think as someone who does content marketing for a living, I've certainly done social media. And so, given the industry, I guess, that I'm in, caregiving, end of life, I see the benefits of social media from that perspective, exactly what you said, with Laura being so public and open about it, her story, her experience with cancer, in that way.
And I think
that's the little segment of social media that's good.
It's a really good point. I mean, I think social media, it's kind of a miracle. I mean, just the interconnectedness of people that would never actually cross paths being able to communicate. Now, given there is a lot of ugliness to it, and I think that's how it typically gets branded. But just like with all power, it's in the beholder. What do you choose to do with it is really up to the individual. And I think everybody can look inward and do a quick audit. Are you using it to enhance, or are you using it to deter from the things that actually matter? And so Laura was one of those people that did use it to uplift, to inspire, to share, all of these things. And I remember just being so blown back by not just the reception, but how much courage it actually takes to do that. And if people were ever interested, I mean, they could always see her videos on Facebook from the day of diagnosis through the entire progression. And it's almost like this timeline, as someone that's lost Laura, and I mean, anybody who's lost a significant other, it's difficult going back there and looking at those videos and knowing the outcome. I still avoid it. That's still where I'm at. I'm at this place where, I've made the transition from no longer remembering her from like someone that was sick with cancer, but rather celebrating the person that she was. Because, I mean, all too often, I mean, a cancer diagnosis is similar to any sort of life-threatening diagnosis where you get branded as a patient, and you're not a patient, you're a person, and you were one before, and you're one after.
Yeah. You touched on something interesting there too, is like the digital afterlife. I think that's such a fascinating time that we live in, that, like, as you said, I literally could go to Facebook and see Laura, even though she's no longer with us, and follow that journey. In fact, I think I just did it yesterday at Gabby, that young woman who went missing, and they found Like, I went to her Instagram. It's so strange that there's now this like living, breathing document of her legacy.
Well, in particular, I mean, that's really important for my family because, you know, James needs to remember his mom. And you know, I always have this idea in my head that, you know, time can help, but it can also water down and make you forget. And so having these videos and having these like fossils and timestamps of, you know, wonderful memories, painful memories too, that you've shared in the past, you know, offer perspective when you look back in your life and reflect on it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that old cliche that we often hear about time heals all wounds. And wounds heal in their own time. And when it's the time for you to heal, it happens in its own time. And I think these memories that are created by social media, being timeless per se, are cherished.
Yeah. And, you know, I'm not certain that time heals, especially if you're not being proactive about healing,
right?
And trying to make sense about it, because time, if it's not used correctly and you're not assigning value to it and you're stuck and you can't get off the couch because you can't muster the strength to do so, that has the risk of creating its own negative routine that can draw you deeper and deeper and deeper, and it makes it more difficult to get out. For me, time is one of those things that when I watched Laura go through cancer and how much she loved the life prior, I mean, you see how much they fight.
Mm-hmm.
And it's one of those things where it's like, oh my God, have I never been appreciating any of this?
Right.
And, you know, I would get caught up in these, I think of them as almost like these micro moments, these seconds where you're trying to absorb everything as much as possible, because as a caregiver, you're caught in this juxtaposition of always giving hope to that person while simultaneously knowing and preparing that they're going to pass away.
Right.
So it's this constant weight that I think is put on every caregiver, which is act strong and provide so that you can give them the fuel that they need. But also, you know, where does a caregiver go when they need someone to talk to? You know, and it's a really challenging thing. And my hat and my sympathies go out to a lot of the caregivers. I mean, all of them, because of, you know, the love and pain that they're simultaneously balancing, while trying to make sense of something that I don't know if we'll ever understand.
If we'll ever understand, because it, you know, I like to say, you know, there's two very common aspects to caregiving. There's a beginning, and then there's an ending, and we're not prepared for either one of these life-changing events. And then when it's a spouse, a partner, you know, where there's that pre-established relationship, and then caregiving comes in during that relationship, it's like having two relationships at one, and then all of a sudden they both end at the same time. And what are we to do?
Yeah, and I'm not sure if there's a rule book, and I'm not sure how you guys navigated yours, but for me, I know who I am. I mean, at this age, I got my foundation. I don't have all the answers, but I'm always searching for a new one. And it's one of those things where, for me, I can read something, and sure, may hit me, it may jog me, but I don't adopt it. I don't absorb it until I actually experience it. I have to actually walk the walk and go through it and force myself into those awkward and painful next steps of rebuilding, so that I can say, okay, that wasn't as bad, or that was worse than I thought. All of these different things. But the more that you do it, the more you try, the more you get out there, they become more familiar. They don't ever become as comfortable as it was before. And I don't think anybody should put the pressure on themselves to compare that. But at the same time, it's just being active and knowing that this part of a caregiver's life, whether or not it's active and currently taking care of somebody or dealing with the loss of them, that is a chapter, and you have to find a way to move forward with them in your heart and continue to find and assign purpose to their life and lessons that they taught you.
Mm-hmm. Well, speaking of chapters, I want to start at the beginning. I think now's a good opportunity to ask you two-parter here, which is one, had you experienced prior to, the experience with Laura, had you experienced loss in any significant way or caregiving in any significant way prior to, and then the second part is I want to talk about Laura. I'd love to learn more about her and who she was. So if you can remember both of those questions, I just wanted to put those out there.
Yeah. I've experienced loss, but not in a similar fashion. Whereas, lost like, both my grandparents. I actually, when I think I was like 14, I gave my grandpa's eulogy. So, I've always had this kind of appreciation for life and the celebration of death too, even though it's painful. But my understanding of it at that age is vastly different than how I understand it today after going through Laura, because there's so many elements to this. There is everything leading up to that, receiving that call that you have cancer. There is the planning of your life, the hallmarks, the buy a house, get the job, go on vacation, all the tasks that and measures that we put in for ourselves. And then the second you receive that call, all of those things just go away, and it just becomes solely focused and clear. Like, win the day. Just, that's it. Like, just win the day. Like, execute, like, be there, be supportive. Try to, by the end of the day, when you put your head on the pillow and you go to bed, don't be so hard on yourself if you came up short, but recognize that you may be able to do better tomorrow. And, there's a clarity that happens as well, even when things are very confusing. Scheduling appointments, building your health team, working with family and their questions, and, emails while simultaneously raising a child. And, I have, a professional life, and all of these responsibilities, they can feel very suffocating. If you, one, don't have the support, which I'm lucky I had, but two, if you can't put them in silos of importance. And when Laura got diagnosed, there was only one thing that was important, and that was, be the person and the type of support that I promised her I would be on our wedding day.
I think that's a very relatable mission for all caregivers, the promises, especially for partners, romantic partners.
Yeah.
I love care and commitment, as Chris likes to say.
That's what it's all about. Yeah.
Well, I'll follow up with that second question again, which is tell us a little bit about Laura, who she was, how you met. I want to hear more about your love story.
Yeah, so we have a very rich one. Let's see, this would be in 2003. I'm a sophomore in college at Loyola University in Chicago, and she actually was coming up for a high school visit, like to see which college she wanted to go to. And Laura was just insanely smart. She was born in Metro Detroit area, and she had tons of colleges that were just courting her, trying to get her to go. And I remember her visiting with a friend, and I remember seeing her for the first time, and just, that feeling where there's that like aura, like nothing has to be discussed. There's like this soul connection. I remember seeing that and like going over to her. We started talking. She was there like for the night. So we spent like the whole night kind of hanging out, like getting to know each other. And we had a lot of like mutual friends too. So I did have, I did my background check too, which is always important, just in case they're really good. And yeah. And, I was just really drawn back by like her smile, her eyes, like the way that she carried herself, her outlook on life. And, I like to think I played a major role in her deciding to come to Loyola the following year. And so once she came to Loyola, I was actually like super intimidated. I'm like, oh my God, now I really have to deliver. You came to school now. And I think we didn't speak for like the first month because we were just like intimidated. But after the first month, we went out on a date. I remember calling my mom, who's never heard this from me in my life. And I said, I found the girl I'm going to marry. And she's like, oh my God, I just dropped you off. Like, dear Lord, like, can't you just go to school? And I'm like, don't worry, I'm going to school too. She's actually smarter than me. So, I'll probably cheat off her or something. And, from there, we stuck together for 16 years. Just a great relationship. Nothing perfect at all. And I wouldn't want it to be either. I think it's through like those like ups and downs that you have with somebody that, they're really that test that every relationship needs, and that validation that you're with somebody who has the same grit and wherewithal to withstand the hardships that life throws at you. And we were able to do all of that. And in 2012, we finally got married. So about 10 years later, which everyone's like, oh my God, you waited 10 years. It's like, chill, guys. Like, I met her when I was like 19. So I wasn't dragging my feet. Sure. We were just young. Okay. But we knew we were going to get married, and, she went to Notre Dame for her MBA school, and we did a little long distance there. Then, while I was still in Chicago, then moved down to Columbus, Ohio, lived there for 2 years, then back up to Cleveland. And, then we bought a house in Akron in 2014 or something like that, 2 years afterwards.
Love the moving around Ohio.
Yeah, I know. I love the Buckeye State.
So, Michael, you're talking about Akron, and one of the beautiful parts about what I read about the story is the Stewarts caring place.
Yes,
I'd love for you to talk about their wonderful work and how Laura got involved.
Yeah, Stewarts Caring Place is a remarkable nonprofit in Northeast Ohio. They're located, about 3 miles away from me. And Laura and I, when we first moved back to Akron, we've always been kind of service driven. And we were like, which one should we get a part of? And sometimes it's just testing them out, Boys and Girls Club here, Big Brothers, Big Sisters, then Stewart's Caring Place. And we went to a couple like Stewarts Caring Place events, volunteered, did some fundraising, and I really didn't understand 100% what they did when I first got involved. I just knew that the people that ran it, Janine Marks, and their amazing board, they just had this amazing life about them. And, over the span of, 2 years or so, I got to know a little bit more about it, but no more than when Laura got diagnosed, I really understood their valuable services. And what Stewart's Caring Place does is they provide free health services to cancer patients, their caregivers, their children, their network. And so what are those cancer services? I mean, those are transportation to chemotherapy. Those are, referrals to doctors and strategies for building a health team. They offer free wigs and cosmetics and beauty. As somebody's body is changing, they're losing sometimes their identity of who they were. And that's a devastating thing. So they make them feel beautiful again. They give them free food, healthy food, diet advice, massages, like all of these wonderful things to, keep intact that human element that often gets lost when you're constantly being picked and prodded by needles and examined and everything else. So, when Laura got diagnosed, they were our first call. And I mean, honestly, Stewart's Caring Place should be in every city across the country. And I just feel very blessed that it's right in our backyard.
I agree with that. Accessibility of that layer of support is just the most important thing, I think, for anyone, both patients and caregivers.
Sometimes you don't know what you need even.
Exactly.
Like how often did we all get those calls where it's like, just give us a call, anything you want. And you're like, oh my God, now that feels like a task. Like I've learned over the span of just my own journey that the best help, it comes unsolicited, and people just anticipate what you'll need before you even ask for them. And it's a real skill, and it takes a while to understand. But, when you ask somebody what they need, a lot of times their mind isn't even processing.
Yeah, you don't really know.
Need.
Yeah.
No, I mean, they want to
ecstatic.
go back to their life before all this even happened, and that can't be provided. But then there's the day in, day out stuff, the grocery shopping, the laundry, the tasks that pile up when your time is spent alongside your loved one that you're taking care of. So all of those things, it's kind of this supernatural skill that you develop where you're just anticipating it before it happens and not having to be asked.
That's our caregiving. That's our caregiver's cape in action, where we just snap it and it hopefully tries to fix everything. So,
right, I know.
I'm wondering if I'm sorry, Christina. I bumped in. You'll go right ahead. Go right ahead.
That's okay. I'm just so excited to keep learning more about Michael's story. Yeah. So I have a ton of questions, but I'm curious, after Laura was diagnosed, you've spoken to the fact that obviously those plans that you have in place, they get shattered, for the future plans rather. So as you're processing this diagnosis, at what point did you realize you were a caregiver, or, what was that self-identification process like for you?
That's a great question. I don't think I identified as a caregiver until after she passed, if I'm being honest. I think for me, I was just focused on, the day and being a good husband, and it didn't feel like a responsibility as much as it felt like a calling. it's one of those things where no matter how much hardship anybody goes through in life, when you're faced with that hardship, it feels like it's the biggest thing on earth. But I've come to understand that you really never know what you're training for. You never know how this hardship will shape you and prepare you for something bigger down the road. So that when that thing does come up and that, comes to surface, you can say with confidence, I'm prepared for this. I've done, harder things and have been able to persevere. So having that kind of perspective and not getting overwhelmed with, the bad things that happen in our life or things that are just undesirable. I always try to ask people, reassign meaning to them. And you don't know when you will actually be able to tap into that, but just know with confidence that one day you will be.
It's a great message. Chris, did you want to jump in with your question?
I
Do you remember what you were going to ask?
Just so relatable to experiences and situations. And I think that's why we do have these conversations, because we know that there are people that are going to come after us who are going to have similar journeys that don't, when they get that call, that, because that call impacts obviously the person who has the cancer, but it impacts everybody that's around them. And to be able to share these stories, and even if we're just touching one person, we know that we're giving back to the community, which I think is what we're kind of called to do.
Oh, I totally agree. I think for many, sometimes it's easy for me to assign like imagery to complicated feelings. And, there's so many, living things on this planet that have a symbiotic relationship with each other. Their life source is through their partner. And when, their partner dies or goes away, that partner is kind of left with, they don't have their life source anymore.
Right.
Like we talk about identity as a caregiver. What about identity as a spouse, as a daughter, as a husband, as a wife? Like, that's the strongest identity I've ever had. And, when that goes away, who are we? And that's a really scary thing to be faced with, no matter what time in your life,
right.
Whether or not you've lost a loved one at an earlier age like I have, or, you're in twilight years and you knew it was going to happen at one time. It doesn't make anything easier.
It doesn't make it easier.
And It does not. And there should never be comparison, but there always is hope, and it's ever present. And the first step is oftentimes just having the courage to take the first step.
And I'm wondering, your story is obviously very public and very beautiful, and the impact of having a public story on finding your identity after caregiving ends. I know I struggled with that for years, trying to, where do I fit? I long to have the life that I once had, but it took me years to accept that wasn't ever coming back, and trying to find our identity after caregiving, and especially when stories are so public. I really appreciate your insights on this.
Yeah, it's, my story, Laura's story, family story was very public in Akron because Laura wanted it to be. she felt like what she was going through, while painful, was a special life experience that can also create, and there was like so much beauty in the whole thing. Like it really wasn't just like 2 years of being sad and everything. We appreciated things way more than we ever thought were possible. And, laughed a lot, went on vacations a lot, like understood the finality of life and how precious it was that like our lives actually intersected at this particular time. And there was just a lot of really great shared moments, and bringing that relationship into the public spotlight, it was definitely uncomfortable, but at the same time, she felt like there was significant value there, and I wanted to continue that message after she left us, and kind of take her with me.
So what's a favorite memory from that period, like post-diagnosis and before Laura reached her life's end? What are some favorite memories from that time?
I mean, we continued to live our life. Obviously, James provided a million opportunities as a 7-month-old to distract us from what was going on, in terms of, cancer and health services and all of that treatment. We went on tons of vacations. I mean, Laura actually got 2 cancer-free diagnoses, so we celebrated those, only to be saddened later. But those times were really good to think that it was somehow behind us. Deeper conversations about life, about purpose, about service, things that are more everlasting than the materials we feel like we have to collect. It was, just kind of appreciating, each other, and how rare it seems to find somebody that you can simultaneously grow with throughout life. Even though you're not the same person, we're both individuals, but we grew together, and that was through all of life's cycles. There's this idea I came across where, and I think a lot of caregivers may relate to this, where it's toxic positivity. And when everybody comes up to you and they say, don't worry, things are going to be okay. And you're like, the hell if they are. If I thought they were, I wouldn't be a freaking mess. I think what people who don't understand this, what that message gets perceived as, is that I don't want to hear about the bad stuff from the person saying it. And, we shouldn't assign a value to good or bad emotions. They should be approached face on with equal intensity and enthusiasm. They're challenges. Yes. Do we prefer good moments? Yes. But without bad moments, you can't even appreciate good moments either. You can't compare good moments if you don't have bad. It's just everything's rainbows all the time. So you don't have those spikes, and you need them. So it's my grandpa, actually, he does calligraphy, and before he passed, it was gave me an awesome gift on my 18th birthday, and it was he wrote out Rudyard Kipling's poem "If," And there's a quote in there, which is basically, maintain or keep your head while everyone else is losing theirs. And on that day, you'll become a man. And it's so true. And I like to constantly look at myself like, and this is before the Bachelorette and all of this stuff, but I've always liked to look at myself like I was watching my day in and day out on, a television screen or in a movie theater. Would I root for myself, constantly? Would I actually, if I removed myself and became this third party viewer, would I say that person is consistent with who I thought they were or how they identify themselves or who they try to be? And I always have this like visual just watching myself on TV, like throughout my day. I mean, it could be just any interaction with a stranger. It could be something as important as this. But are my words in line with my action? And that always brings me back to like my center and trying to remind myself what's most important.
I think that's a relatable metaphor. Speaking of metaphors, you're talking about toxic positivity, which I think is a fairly common experience, part of the caregiving experience, but unique to cancer is the battle metaphors. And so I'm curious what your experience, what Laura's experience was with that language of like battles and wars and fighting. Is that language helpful, or is it hurtful, or is it a little bit of both?
I would say in the beginning phases of a diagnosis, we did feel, because given in the beginning phases, you're just assessing, what type of cancer has it spread, what treatments are going to be there. And every day it felt as though everything changed. So it felt like we were constantly being attacked and being on the defensive. And so I think mentally for us, and this doesn't go across the board to everybody, it was just how we interpreted it. It was really when we started looking at it as like, how about we go on the offensive? How about we look at the things that we can control? Our relationship, our happiness, our diet, our support system,
right.
Like our perspective, like, because you're just trying to control something and you can't control like the most important stuff. And so I think for us, the mentality of going on the offensive, preparing, did help us feel a sense of control, that, not everything was, everything happens for a reason, which don't get me started on that. But
it's awful.
Like I wanted to, just get our plan together and put together something that, would help us find happiness, even as small as just a couple moments during the day to, trying to find a way to beat cancer.
We used to like to say, Richard and I used to like to say to each other, and I would write about this, we might have cancer, but cancer never had us.
Oh, I love that. That's so spot on. It's maybe you guys felt this way. Like once there was a cancer diagnosis, it's like your world just became cancer. Like you'd walk into a room full of people and you're like, oh, here are the cancer people.
You're the cancer.
And yeah. And you're like, wait a second. And the same thing happened as a widower. Like, oh, here comes the widow guy.
Here comes the widow, right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it was like, yeah, like I appreciate you guys acknowledging it. I know you don't live it every day. So when you see me, it's a reminder. of, what you know about my experience, but like right now I just want to watch a football game and relax and tune off. But it's a wild experience. It really is. And there's no rules to this thing.
And it's a learn as you go experience for everybody. I often like to say, now 7.5 years past, that when I look back, and I look back at all the pictures, and I look back at the experience, I understand that in the good days far outweighed the bad days. It's just that the bad days were so intense when you're in the middle of it. And that's, another reason why we do have these meaningful and wonderful conversations to be able to help people that are going to go through they're going to go through something similar than what we've been through.
Yeah. And, trying to find happiness after losing somebody is really challenging. And, it often can feel very complex, but this is what I believe. Like, if we were to get everybody in a room and ask them, what's happiness mean to you? You're going to get the answers, health and family and prosperity, or this, that, or the other, safety, your whole triangle. And I really think it's as simple as this. Happiness is just having something to look forward to. And that's it. It's as simple as that. So it's not all of these things and weighing how is my level on this, that, or the other, but just looking forward to something. And so I remember when, Laura passed, I just kept that question or that statement and quote in the back of my head. Like, one day I'll have something to look forward to. And when you said it and you keep it simple like that, I think it makes it easier to take that first step.
I'm going to remember that mantra now. I love that. That's so true.
Yeah.
It's not about those big things like having a kid or buying a house, although those things certainly can bring happiness. But it's just looking forward to something.
Recognizing when you do get excited about something in the future. I mean, I think that approach isn't just for people with loss, but it's people suffering from depression or keeping up with the Joneses, or all of these unnecessary problems that we create for ourselves. And on a regular basis, life gives you problems. You don't need to create them. Relationships are key. Those things you'll never get back. Nurture them, grow them, take care of them. But, I remember this, as you can, I'm really into like music, love reading. I just find all that stuff just, purposeful. And there's a great quote that is my favorite, and it is by Phil Ox, and it's wrong to expect a reward for your struggle. The reward is the act of struggle itself, not what you win. And while we can't expect to defeat the absurdity in the world, we must make an attempt. That's religion, that's art, that's morality, that's life. And isn't that what we're all trying to do, is defeat the absurdity in the world? And just the fact that you are trying and making that attempt is enough.
Amen.
Wow. That was very powerful.
Yeah, it's been my favorite quote since I've been, 18 maybe, something like that. I came across it and I was like,
that'll stick with you.
It. Just make the attempt. I think if everybody didn't just point out the fact that the world is absurd, but made the attempt to try to fix it, we wouldn't be in a lot of the situations that we're in. And I think we have enough resources to fix a lot of things too. It's just making the attempt is that necessary call to action. Go ahead. Sorry, Christopher.
That's why we started this podcast.
It's making the attempt. That's what I think that's kind of in a way what we're all called to do.
Yeah. Yeah. And, my attempt now is, through the L4 Project, which is a nonprofit that I started after Laura passed. And, as we spoke before, Laura was incredibly philanthropic. And I felt as though our community and her message was lost when she passed away. So how do we fill that void? How do I create something that shows the world how amazing Laura was and, hopefully provide my son with this anchor that allows this connection between him and his mother as time goes on. And the L4 Project is a fundraising platform where we actually sell branded merchandise online, and all proceeds go to charity. And our mission is really to enhance and support and ease the pain of people who are going through a cancer diagnosis. So we're not involved in research or anything like that. We really focus in at the human level on what are the necessary vital things that people need in order for them to navigate this complex web, while not losing the human element, their identity, their comfort, all of these things. And so it's a really inspiring thing, and it's a passion project that keeps Laura's spirit with me all the time. And so while it's exhausting running these things, which it is, I get James down to bed and I'm like, oh my God. At the end of the day, when I put my head down on the pillow, I'm like, I'm glad I did it.
Yeah. Well, you're certainly filling an important gap, I think, as you said. I feel like there's, plenty of research. What's needed is that kind of community-driven piece. Always.
Yeah. And
can you tell us what...
go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to ask, too, if you could tell us what L4 stands for so everyone knows.
Yeah, L4 stands for Live Life Like Laura. And it was actually the last line that I delivered when I gave her eulogy. And so it was, a way to kind of keep her close while simultaneously making it L4. It also reiterates what she would say a million times over, which it's larger than me. So it's not just about Laura. It's about all those people that carry the weight, that go through this, every element of it. And I'm really excited because about a year and a half ago, during COVID, think about how much COVID has hurt people's businesses or isolation. They haven't been able to do anything. Well, what about kids with pediatric cancer? When their families can't even go in to see them, like when they are getting treatment, that is like devastating. Sorry. Sorry guys. But about a year and a half ago, our team at L4 contacted Akron Community or Akron Children's Hospital, their shower center for pediatric cancer and blood disorders. And what we wanted to do was flip the script a little bit. You have children who are caught up on Instagram. They're looking at what they're missing out on. Why can't they be normal? Why is this happening. And what we wanted to do was give them an opportunity to tell their story, to be empowered, and to become fashion designers. So that maybe their other friends on Instagram would be jealous of them. And we went back and forth, and we collected all of this amazing artwork and, testimonials and stories. And, we asked them, tell us like how your day is going. Like, tell us what it's like to be you as a person. And what we do is we try to take something very real like that and convert it into like graphics, and we put them on t-shirts and things like that that tell their story without being obvious. It requires some thought. You can't be spoon-fed this stuff, sorry.
Right.
And you're gonna have to think. And if you go on l4project.com, we came up with something called the Sunrise shirt, which it's a blue heart. And at the bottom of it, looks like an ocean, and there's a sun coming up. It's a real cool shirt. And when you're looking at it, you can't tell if it's a sunrise or a sunset. And that is our attempt of not simplifying that and having that toxic positivity that everything's going to be okay, because the truth is it's going to be very difficult. So it could be a sunset, it could be a sunrise, but you're surrounded by love, and never forget the benefit and the joy that you're still looking at the sun regardless.
It's beautiful. What a gift you're giving to these children.
Oh, my.
And empowering them to learn how to share their story at such a young age.
Yeah. I mean, again,
So special.
it's the attempt.
Mm-hmm.
It certainly puts what you have on the website into perspective, a place where kindness never goes out of fashion.
Yeah, I believe it.
We love kindness. Mm-hmm. Well, I know we're already reaching an hour. I feel like there's a million more questions we probably want to ask.
Yeah, I have a tendency to be like one walking long run-on sentence.
There's no reason why we can't do another podcast down the road. There's no reason why we can't do another podcast down the road, because it's just, goodness, it's just so meaningful, Michael, for to have you and to share your story like this and to connect with so many people and to give back.
Thank you. I mean, I think if I've noticed that if I put my pain and my problems at the center of my world, they just get magnified, even if they're stupid and irrelevant. There's a real gift that comes when you put others' problems at the center of your world. It's not this martyrdom, Mother Teresa thing either. It's selfish too. It helps me understand perspective and, assign meaning to life. So, anything that I can do, I'm typically open to it. And I really appreciate you guys giving me a platform to be able to, tell my story, Laura's story, and, some of the important passion projects that I'm working on.
Absolutely. Well, we would be remiss if we didn't ask you about James, a little bit more about James and how he's doing.
Oh, he's good. About 2 weeks ago was his 5th birthday. So he's growing up so fast. I mean, honestly, he's the happiest child I know. He has this incredible, mature, almost like Confucian approach to life that is bizarre. Like, for example, on the day of his birthday, I go up to his room and I'm like, James, how does it feel to be 5? And he's like, it feels good, Daddy, but don't forget, I will always have 4 in here. And I'm like, did you get that from like a fortune cookie? Like, what are you talking about? Like, it's 7 a.m. I can't even afford this right now. But he's just a really thoughtful, like, great kid. And, as, a single father, it's like we're enjoying life. Like, we're experiencing everything. I mean, it's sad that, I don't have somebody to share these memories with. And, but I'm glad I have him, and he looks just like Laura, acts just like Laura. So there is this beautiful kind of struggle and thing that's happening where she lives kind of within him, and it's not lost on me.
Well, I wanted to ask too, since we're airing this in the month of October, I believe I saw you post recently that Halloween is his favorite holiday. So what are your plans together? Do you do costumes together?
Yeah, Halloween's the greatest. I love Halloween for a lot of things. Christmas is obviously great, but it doesn't have the pressure of Christmas, the gift wrapping and going to everyone's house and, fruit cake. But with Halloween, it's really, really fun because I feel like it's when a kid like really lights up. They get to dress up in costumes. We throw a Halloween party at the house. We'll go to a bunch of them. In Ohio, we're blessed to have like amazing falls and do the corn mazes and pumpkin carving. We already started for Halloween. I've got 3 carved pumpkins out on my doorstep, which, their faces are probably already falling in.
Sure.
But James wants to be a guinea pig for Halloween this year, which I don't know how we're going to do that. But we're
going to need pictures.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. I'll end up making something if I have to. There's not one out there. But yeah, my boy will be a guinea pig. And I'm not sure what I'll be yet. But yeah, we usually go at it.
You could be the farmer.
Hamster wheel, no.
Yeah, I could be a farmer. Yeah, he usually likes when I surprise him with something that like doesn't make sense. So, yeah, we'll have to see and dig into that.
Aw. Yeah, Halloween's my favorite too.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Even as a grown-up.
Yeah, so it's so much fun.
Well, Michael, this has just been a delightful visit. There's so much more we could talk about, but if I could be real personal here and share something with you that helped me get through transition, and I'm going to kind of rely on our Catholic background here. Our faith tells us you will see her again. Our mind tells us she's forever pain-free. And our hearts tell us she's standing right beside you and James. I can't thank you enough for sharing your experience, your wisdom, and your story with us today. You are one awesome person.
Thank you. And please send me that quote, because there's a lot of wisdom in there and a lot of truth.
That quote got me through a lot of really bad days.
I can see why.
And I'm happy to share that with you and all of our listeners. So, anything else you'd like to? Oh my gosh, it gets so intense.
Yeah, is there anything we missed that you want to?
I told you I wasn't scared to touch on the difficult stuff.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to say what you guys are doing, and you don't need me to say this, but it's important work. People need to hear your guys' message. It's probably therapeutic for you to discuss this, and because it's very easy to run away from it in your day in and day out life, and having this time to, reflect on how we all got here is very, very important. And so, you're doing a great service to a lot of people, and keep up the great work.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.
So, Michael, let all of our listeners know how they can find out more information about you and the wonderful project, the L4 project, so that they can be in touch.
Yeah, so if you wanted to stay in touch with me or send me, any your thoughts on this or your own personal journey, I'm very active on social media, and you could find me on Instagram at Michael_Allio L4, and send me a message, and we'll keep the dialogue going. And if you're interested in learning more about the L4 project, ways you could volunteer, donate, purchase material and clothing, just go on to l4project.com.
I have some donations I'm going to send. So
Oh, you guys are so kind. Thank you.
And How We Got Here is produced and edited by Bill Oddman of Oddbox Productions.
Social media is by me, and designs are by Michelle Lacouture.
And How We Got Here is a production of caregiving.com and the Whole Care Network, and is sponsored by Anthem.
We are on social media at _HWGH pod, and that's on Instagram and Twitter.
And as always, we'll be back for another episode of How We Got Here next Tuesday. Thanks for listening.